Welcome, dear thrill seekers and the curious, to the realm where the ordinary meets the eerie. Gather around for these next creepy true tales. When I was younger, I used to take naps upstairs, but as I grew older, around 8 years old, I became adamant about avoiding the upstairs altogether. Upstairs, there were two rather large spaces, resembling closets or perhaps attics, stretching from one end of the upper floor to the other, on both sides. It was essentially a crawl space, approximately 30 feet long. The peculiar events began one day when a friend and I decided to explore the crawl space with our flashlights, as curious kids often do. Then, to my astonishment, I spotted a young girl sitting in the corner, appearing as though she wanted to play with us. Contrary to the common claim that people are unafraid when they see ghosts, I was utterly terrified. This girl looked completely normal, with blonde hair, a charming dress, and a friendly demeanor. I stayed silent, trailing behind my friend, and hastily exited the crawl space. I confided in him about what I had seen in there, but he insisted he hadn't noticed anything, though he felt an unease about returning. Occasionally, my parents would send me upstairs to retrieve something, and upon reaching the upstairs, I would witness the closet doors swinging open as if they were beckoning me inside. Toys would mysteriously vanish, nowhere to be found. Then, unexpectedly, my parents would rummage through the attic while retrieving Christmas decorations, only to discover some of my missing toys hidden among the items. I vividly recall being 8 years old, with my parents still asleep one morning. I summoned the courage to confront the entity in the attic, even leashing up my dog for protection. Strangely, my usually fearless dog flatly refused to step beyond the top step into the attic. My parents remained skeptical about the strange occurrences in the house, often attributing them to me. I would often get blamed for things happening throughout the house, such as leaving lights on, scattering toys about, even though I knew I was innocent. Fast forward to when I was 10, we finally moved out of that house. Barely a week passed before the new owners contacted us, inquiring if the house was haunted. Their daughter, who now occupied the upstairs, claimed to have played with a blonde-haired girl at night. My parents chuckled at what they believed to be the new homeowner's eccentricity. To keep a long story short, the mysterious girl began appearing in other parts of the house for them. They stayed in touch with us. They would occasionally glance away from the TV and see the girl sitting on their daughter's lap, among other peculiar sightings. Curious about the house's history, they conducted online research into its past owners and stumbled upon an old dressmaker who had once resided there, a lady with a collection of dresses that included a photograph of a young girl wearing one of her gowns. About 2 weeks before our family moved, my father and I did a final walkthrough of the house. I happened to notice this guy painting the water heater, which struck me as incredibly odd, but I was just a 10-year-old, so I shrugged it off. Fast forward to our move-in day on a Wednesday. My parents decided to let me stay home from school until the following Monday, keeping me entertained with coloring books and a brand new dollhouse. To my bewilderment, my fresh 64 pack of crayons was missing the blue crayon, despite being labeled as such. It contained only 63 crayons. One day, while exploring the basement, I stumbled upon my missing blue crayon beside the hot water heater, with a scribbled message that read, "Hi Kevin." I couldn't fathom what was going on. When I eventually started school, my new classmates bombarded me with questions like, "OMG, do you live in Kevin's house? Your house is going to be haunted." As it turned out, Kevin was an 8-year-old boy who had previously lived in our house and tragically met his end in our front yard after being struck by a car. Kevin had an intriguing presence in our home. He would leave notes if you left out a pen and paper, play tricks like opening and closing doors, and even adjust the thermostat, the old-fashioned kind with a knob. Come Christmas time, he'd always make sure to play festive tunes. Our backyard featured a swing set, and on the hottest, stillest summer days, only the left swing would sway gently back and forth. We had this rather silly cat that I would lock in my bedroom at night. Each morning, my parents would let him out and close the door behind them. However, one night, I woke up to the cat meowing at the door. It startled me awake, and to my surprise, the door slowly creaked open, causing the cat to hiss and bolt out in a frenzy. The next morning, I questioned my parents about why they hadn't closed my door, and they insisted they hadn't opened it. The last eerie encounter took place during one particularly bleak Christmas break when I was feeling extremely distraught and almost suicidal. Out of nowhere, the police showed up at our house. The officer claimed he was patrolling our neighborhood and sensed that something was amiss at our residence. I'm utterly convinced that Kevin had something to do with that inexplicable visit. My earliest recollection revolves around an encounter with a spectral presence. To the best of my knowledge, I couldn't have been more than 3 years old when this event unfolded. My parents, however, remained unconvinced and always offered some rationalization for my experiences. We eventually changed residences, and while minor oddities continued to occur from time to time, my parents persistently attributed them to my vivid imagination. Fast forward to my marriage and our move into an antiquated apartment, where things began to escalate. Containers would be appended, their contents strewn across the floor. Later, when we moved in with my in-laws while my husband pursued his education, that's when the genuine peculiarities started. The house would undergo phases of heightened activity, often centered around me. My husband recounted hearing my voice calling out to him from different rooms when I had not called him at all. He would spot me passing by the bottom of the staircase, only to follow me around the corner into another room, only to find it empty. Here's the most pivotal episode. My husband worked night shifts, leaving me home alone on the farm, with my in-laws away on a trip. One of our dogs suddenly became agitated, fixating on an empty spot in the middle of the living room, becoming utterly uncontrollable and seemingly irrational. My efforts to calm her were in vain, as her typical responsiveness to a gentle touch did nothing to snap her out of it. Feeling exasperated, I retreated to my room, where I finally heard her cease her commotion. About 15 minutes later, she resumed her frenzied state. I ascended the stairs to halfway, trying to soothe her through the banister, finally succeeding in getting her to join me and cease her barking. However, her gaze was fixed on something near the top of the stairs, and just then, an intense slam resonated from the vicinity of the baby gate, causing it to rattle violently, along with the banister. I opted to ignore it, heeding the advice I had heard that it's best not to engage when something is so near. While the dog barked persistently, I managed to hush her once again. But right within my line of sight, I witnessed a pen being forcefully propelled off the table, sailing several feet before hitting the floor. The dog immediately lunged to confront an unseen presence near the table, prompting me to start unraveling. I swiftly retreated to my bedroom downstairs. Sitting on my bed beside my peacefully napping cat, I began to cry due to the unsettling events. My feline companion, sensing my distress, stood up and approached me. As he did so, his gaze shifted toward the doorway, his back arching, ears flattening, and first standing on end as he fixated on the entrance. It was then that I bolted out of the house. That marked the pinnacle of these eerie occurrences. Reflecting on my life experiences alongside these incidents, I've started to entertain the notion that I might be the source of these unexplained phenomena, perhaps a poltergeist of sorts. As another creepy tale comes to an end, I want to extend my gratitude to all you brave souls who joined us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and stay safe. Remember, the night may be dark, but there's always a tale waiting to be uncovered. Good night, and pleasant nightmares. Signing off from Creepy Tales and Curiosities.